which was also a part of my research done last year, recently, to understand the characteristics of obesity and the associated risk factors, the modifiable risk factors. And the flow of my presentation is going to be like this. As we all know, overweight and obesity is a matter of global health concern. And it's not only rising alarmingly in the developed, but also in the developing nations. And it is a cause of many leading chronic diseases like hypertension, cholesterol, diabetes, etc. And obesity and overweight also puts a tremendous burden on the healthcare system globally. Despite these alarming data and the rising trends, unfortunately, the prevalence of obesity is continuously rising all over the world. And as per the WHO, the World Health Organization data, the recent data, overweight and obesity are alarmingly rising all throughout the world. And the recent studies indicate that obesity and the associated comorbidities account for almost 60% of global deaths. That is really a matter of concern. And almost 46% of the health, disease burden all across the world. And if these rates are continuously rising every year, so maybe by 2030, the global deaths due to obesity may account for almost 70%. And the disease burden may rise almost to about 56 to 57%. Now, although 40%, genetics may contribute to approximately 40% of the obesity cases globally, but researchers indicate that lifestyle and behavioral transitions over the past almost 40 to 50 years can actually be responsible or maybe contributing to the recent obesity epidemic all across the world. And as we all know, a lot of modifiable risk factors contribute, like physical inactivity, high fat intake, calories, junk food consumption are significantly contributing to high rise of obesity and the associated diseases. Now, we all know obesity leads to a lot of health implications. A morbidly obese individual is definitely will have a poor posture, a lot of spinal issues, and may not be able to do the normal the pose or the normal movements may not be possible. But if it is morbidly obese, at the later stage, it also leads to a lot of mental and physical stress, depression, anxiety. And obesity is very well associated to hypertension, heart diseases, diabetes, etc. And eventually, if not treated, it will lead to premature mortality. Now, what is obesity? Obesity is basically having excessive fat accumulation in any part of your body. So carrying extra fat more than your normal, extra weight more than your normal body weight. It is very well calculated by body mass index that is used as an indicator of to know the grade of obesity, that is weight in kgs divided by height in meters square. And we always follow the cutoff points provided by the WHO. That is, if the BMI of an individual lies between 25 to 30, it is defined as overweight. So that means if you have a BMI till 25, you have a normal body weight. Then BMI between 30 to 35 is considered as obese grade 1, 35 to 40 is obese grade 2, and any individual with BMI above 40 is considered obese grade 3, that is morbidly obese, which is, you are prone to more vulnerable to extremely high disease risk. There is another indicator for examining obesity, that is abdominal or the central obesity. That can be defined by waist to hip ratio. That is, it can be measured by the waist circumference in centimeters divided by the hip circumference in centimeters. And as per the WHR guidelines, any individual having the waist hip ratio above 0.8 the risk of morbidities definitely increases, and anybody having WHR above 0.85 is considered obese, and the risk for developing diseases related to obesity are considerably higher. Now, as I already said, that obesity is a global health concern. So, and it has affected almost all the developed and the developing nations. So, like many Gulf countries, Oman has experienced, has an improved socioeconomic status, which has led to more and more people to choose a more sedentary lifestyle and giving rise to more and more lazier people, because social economic status, giving more income, more opportunities and better standards of life. So definitely option of choosing sedentary lifestyles are higher. In Oman, studies have indicated that unfortunately female obesity is more prevalent, and it is almost roughly 33.7% as per the recent data. As compared to the men, it is higher in female. The reasons possibly could be the cultural differences, the restrictions, the barriers for more opportunity for women to step out or to join any sports activities, join families, more work burden just to be bound at home. So women are more prone to opt for a sedentary, a lesser active lifestyle, and also unawareness of eating a healthy diet could be one of the reasons. So in Oman, again, a matter of concern is obesity-associated diseases are on the rise, especially among the Omani females. So to understand the relation between obesity and the associated risk factors in obese Omani women, this study was conducted. And this was a cross-sectional study. Only the obese Omani women between age 30 to 49 were selected. Consent form was taken from each participant after explaining all the proper procedure. Exclusion criteria was pregnant women and ones with any kind of eating disorders. And to understand the physical activity of the subjects, self-reported questionnaire based on International Physical Activity Questionnaire was inserted, and they were asked to answer the amount of time they were involved in any kind of physical activity. Weight, height, as discussed earlier, waist was measured as per the standard norms, BMI was calculated, and then the data was classified into different BMIs. WHR was calculated for abdominal obesity, and the statistical analysis was done by using SPSS tool. Now, here, when we look at the results, as I said earlier, that sedentary lifestyle and obesity are a major health concern. Well, the data was very well distributed among the age bracket. That is, if you can see, 38% of the data of the sample from the 398 were in the 30 to 34 years, 22% were in 35 to 39 years, 16% was the sample was from 40 to 44 years, and the remaining 23% of the sample belonged to the seniors, that is the 45 to 49 years of age group. When the BMI classification was done, so it clearly indicates 47% of the obese women were grade 1 obese. That is the BMI between 30 to 35. And 32% were in grade 2, and almost 21% of the sample of the women were in grade 3 obese. That means they were morbidly obese, which is quite alarming. The number is quite high. Now, as we can see, when the WHR classification was done, to see the abdominal obesity, that was also pretty very common. 29% of the sample they had the waist hip ratio between 0.81 to 0.85. So they were also at a moderate risk of developing obesity related diseases. And if you can see, a concerning 69% of the sample had WHR above 0.85. So they were not only considered obese, but were extremely at extremely high risk of developing associated morbidities. Also, several researches done on obese women and other obese adults indicate worldwide that abdominal obesity is very much related, it is very much related to developing a lot of health diseases related, independent of the overall adiposity. So that means women who had more of central obesity, they were much higher risk of developing diabetes, hypertension, and cholesterol. So as you can see, when a quick look at the sample distribution as per the diseases, a lot of percentages, that means say 19% of the women, only 19% of the sample said they were not having any diseases, but rest 25% with hypertension, 8% with cholesterol, 23% with diabetes, 26% with back issues, arthritis, 18% with acidity, the other heartburns and other stomach-related issues, 12% with the thyroid issues, and other 21% some other health issues, mental issues or depression, etc., which they didn't want to reveal. Now, as I discussed, as I stated earlier, that the physical activity, the level, their involvement in any kind of physical activity, they were interviewed, and the self-reported international IPKO questionnaire was inserted, and they were asked the questions whether how much time they were spending in the last 7 days on different type of activities. So when asked about the time spent on any kind of vigorous exercise, when we say vigorous exercise, that means any strenuous exercise which involves a lot of energy expenditure at a fast pace, like swimming, running, jogging, fast bicycling, heavy weightlifting, etc. But unfortunately, 91%, that means the majority of the sample, refused to have indulged in any kind of vigorous exercise in the last 7 days. They had not done it. They were not doing it. And only 6% of the sample size says they were doing it on just a few days for some minutes or half an hour. Okay. So when they were asked, the subjects were asked about if they were indulged in any moderate kind of physical activity. When we say moderate, it can be dancing, some household chores, carrying light loads, etc. If they were involved in any such kind of activity in the last 7 days, but unfortunately, again, the number is higher than the answers from the vigorous. That is 94% of the subjects said that they did not involve themselves in any kind of moderate exercise in the last 7 days, and only 4 to 5% of the subjects said they were doing it for maybe just an hour for a few days, and most of them who were doing it just 15 to 30 minutes on a regular basis. Now, another important aspect was discussed to understand the sedentary behavior or the level of activity. That was if they were involved in any kind of walking, during the last 7 days. So when they were asked if they were involved in minimum, at least for 10 to 15 minutes of walk in the last 7 days. So as you all can see the results, 65% of the women reported here that they were not involved in any kind of walking in the last 7 days. So again, majority of the subjects were not involved in any kind of walking. 23% of the subjects reported to have gone for a small walk for almost 1 to 3 days, and other 11% said they were doing it regularly, so almost for 4 to 7 days. But again, if you look at it, it was not a very common trend among obese women, and they were just very few were doing it. Others were just, they were ignorant about this important aspect of healthy living. Now, one very important, last but not the least important point here to understand about sedentary lifestyle is the sitting time. How much time they were actually spending just sitting in the last 7 days. When we say time spent on sitting, it involves time spent on your at your workplace, time sitting, traveling in your bus, or any mode of communication, commutation, and sitting while reading, watching TV, working on your gadgets, laptop, etc. So here also, a very, very alarming result that is showing here is that if almost 62% of the sample, 62% of the women, 64% of the women were actually spending more than 10 hours in a day just on sitting, which is a matter of grave concern. So in a day, so that means whether it is on their workplace or for whatever reasons, but they were spending more than 10 hours just on sitting. So a lot of studies have been indicating that the importance of vigorous exercise, any kind of involvement, maybe at least 3 to 4 days in a week, vigorous to moderate exercise, especially in women. It helps in not only in combating obesity, but also it prevent the women from developing the associated diseases. In a control group of a study done on a control group of obese women, it was highlighted very clearly that 90%, almost 90% of the cases of diabetic cases in women can be directly linked to obesity, unhealthy eating habits, and sedentary lifestyle, that is the sitting time. So total sitting time during a day can be directly associated significantly to the development of not only obesity, but also a lot of health diseases associated to obesity. So, so now, as we all can see the result that it was when we did the study. So we understand that prevalence of obesity is a matter of concern, especially in women. And majority of the women in Oman are leading a sedentary lifestyle due to some reason or the other, either by choice, by some no options available, or their lifestyles or their family restrictions or the culture barriers, but they are leading a sedentary lifestyle, which is causing a lot of harm to their health and making them more and more obese. Majority of the women are at a very high risk of developing all the obesity related comorbidities, as we have already discussed in the results. So definitely the data calls for an attention for developing comprehensive nutrition education programs. I feel more and more awareness at individual level